It is the year of our Lord 2023, and like any other good Austrian citizen, I want to start my day by checking out if everything is alright in the neighborhood, because if I didn't protect it, who would? Once I realized that my neighbor from across had already taken this task upon him, I just waved and instead asked the gods for a direction, which they told me in no uncertain terms it was leg day. And since it had like 40 degrees Celsius outside, I donned the appropriate foot attire and made my way to my trusted steed that has definitely not been cooking in the sun for the past 24 hours. Alas, I made it to the gym safely after I had to go home to change again because, and I'm quoting the gym staff here, "What the hell is wrong with you?" But I did not care, because today is an important day, a day where you and I will go through a personal training, if you will. And if you won't, well, that's too bad, because the door is already closed and we are starting with you or with you. You may consider yourself a virtual hostage for the upcoming 15 minutes. Because today we have a reoccurring guest you might have seen on this channel before to teach us something about how to train lower body. And let me tell you, she does that way better than I could ever. This is 2.5 times her body weight and she does it for reps. Like any good and effective training, we start out by activating and warming up. For this reason and this reason only, you are allowed to use a resistance band today. Starting in a lying down position, we will begin by activating our gluteus medius, our ventral glutes, and our abductors, basically the outside of our legs and our butt. We will hold for a second or half a second at the top and then slowly go into a negative movement. In this case, we are starting by explosive positive movements and then by slow negative movements, which will give us a nice burn to start out with. And instead of going for repetitions, we will be doing this for half a minute to a minute, depending on how much endurance you want to build in, even though this is not a lot of resistance, so there won't be a lot of strength endurance building. But since this is a warm-up exercise, this is on purpose. And we will be supersetting this exercise with classic glute bridges, but we are going to additionally keep the resistance band on. Just grab yourself a dumbbell, we are still in the warm-up phase. If you want to, you can put up your toes for some extra calf development, but if you are a man, you can just say that you have bad genetics and leave it at that. This trusted method has been used by me for at least a decade and has been since improved and approved by many a bodybuilder as an acceptable excuse. 2 supersets of warm-ups, because I do not want you to get hurt. Keep the resistance band on so you have a nice little isometric hold on the outside of your leg musculature, as well as full glute activation and full hamstring activation with the glute bridge. You may now approach the squat rack for some front squats. Now, the good thing about front squats is that they will be targeting your quadriceps a lot more than back squats. The downside, however, will be that you cannot get away with using as much weight for most people. With that said, if you do not know how to hit depth when it comes to the squat, you should definitely check out one of my deep squat mobility routines that you can just follow along to go as deep into the squat as you are supposed to. And some of the Sherlock Holmeses of my audience may have noticed now that we are following a theme, the theme of the superset. We are doing single leg RDLs with dumbbells instead of kettlebells, and we are supersetting them with the front squat. So why, you may ask, and I would say, yes, you may. This exercise in particular will work your posterior chain as opposed to the anterior chain we've been working with the front squats. So supersets should preferably be exercises that are chained together in a way where you work your agonists and antagonists. As for the question, what is proper depth when it comes to the squat? First, you can see it here with the safety bars. We are going really lower than 90 degrees, and that is important because we want to have our femur, the bone in our upper leg, to be at the very least parallel to the ground or slightly lower to hit full depth. And here we are supersetting, and this time I'm just showing you the other leg because some of you may just forget to do the other leg because I just showed one. So keep in mind that we always do both legs. As for hitting depth with this exercise, it becomes a little bit more complicated, but a good point to orient yourself by is your spine. As long as you keep your lumbar spine in a small extension, you can go as low as you want. As soon as you notice that your lumbar spine, your lower spine, is rounding, that is a good point to stop and reverse the movement in two negatives, because we do not want to hurt our spine, or so I've been told. The mathematicians in my audience will ask me, how many sets do we do? Which is in itself a very complicated question. If you want to go for hypertrophy, meaning bigger musculature, and that is the only range you want to work with, well, then you should do 3 to maximum 4 sets of 4 to maximum 8 repetitions. If you, however, do want to work a little bit more on strength endurance, and we're gonna increase the repetitions to 10 to 14 repetitions per set, and you may do at the very least 4 sets to keep you in that endurance range. And the crazy ones of you will be doing some sort of hybrid routine when it comes to that. Now we slap on some weight and change to the next exercise superset, and this will be an RDL, a Romanian deadlift, classic stance, feet shoulder width apart. As for depth, I'm gonna stick with the same routine here. If you can get all the way to the ground with your lumbar spine in an at least neutral or extended position, then you may go ahead and do that. If you cannot, however, it is totally fine not to have full range of motion and work your way up there. If you do want to work your way up there faster, however, I also have a guide on this one that coincidentally was just released yesterday. I cannot believe it. 4 to 8 repetitions, feet shoulder width apart, keep your lumbar spine fully extended, your spinal erectors flexed, and again we are going to superset. If you remember, I told you there is only one reason to use the resistance band. I was lying. I was lying to your ears, because your face isn't here. And we are going to do basically reverse extensions. You might have seen the hyperextension machine at gym. We are doing the opposite of that, and all you need for that is some kind of elevation. Combined with the deadlift, that is a very potent technique that is going to max out the gains you can make. And now that we've moved into heavy territory, some of you, actually most of you, will be stronger in their legs and in their glutes as well as their back than they will be with their forearms, because their grip strength has not been trained. And I do not want to, how do Americans say, beat a dead horse, which is horrific, but there is a guide on this one as well on my channel. With the increasing weight, you will of course be decreasing the amount of repetitions that you do. If you want to go for 1 rep maxes, I advise you to first do the 3 sets for hypertrophy if that is what you want to do, and then move on to max out. Maybe once a month, maybe even twice a month if you are super crazy, but do not overdo it with the maxing out, because you will hurt yourself. As someone who has done squat everyday challenges where you go to max out every single day on the squat rack, it is not that smart to do, and I did it as a professional, which is, some would say, even worse. So we've made it to the last set of deadlifts. The weight has increased drastically to about 80 to 90% of our 1 repetition max, and we are doing only 4 repetitions now. That is the max that we can do with this weight, and that is okay because we are in our hypertrophy range. If you are working on strength endurance, I would say keep it in the 60 to maximum 70% range. Which moves us to our next superset of exercises, starting with the glute bridges, and we are going heavy from the start. Those are 120 kilograms, which unironically is twice my body weight. Again, 4 to 8 repetitions for hypertrophy, 10 to 12 to 14 repetitions for strength endurance, and we are going to superset this exercise with another kind of glute bridge, a pseudo glute bridge if you will. And I can already hear it, but you said you should only superset agonists and antagonists. Well, the only reason we are doing this here right now is because we want to include a little bit more of our core, especially our obliques, meaning the sides of our core musculature, as well as all the stabilizers in our legs, in our spine, and in the rest of our body, which you have to agree is a pretty acceptable reason to break one of my rules. And with this exercise, keep your hips parallel to the ground, because for one, we want to have full range of motion. You might have even a little bit of a stretch in your quadriceps and hip flexors. And for the second thing, we want to fully activate our abdominals, which means we want to include a little bit of internal rotation to keep the hips parallel. Moving on to our final set of glute bridges, you can see the weight is getting pretty serious now, and we are down again to a maximum of 4 repetitions. Now for the glute bridge, I want you to hold at the very top of the exercise, and instead of going fully down and touching down, I want you to stay just a centimeter away from the ground to keep that tension active. And now that we are done with all the heavy exercises, we are going to really slow it down with the sissy squat. If you do not have one of these contraptions at your gym, you may as well use the leg press. For instance, you can go back to using your own body weight or just an empty barbell. Slow the movement down, and you may even want to switch from a front to a back squat if you really want to give your biceps femoris a little bit more work if you don't feel it yet, which is basically also the back side, the posterior side of your upper leg. And we're already adding the finishing touches. We are going to work on our deep squat mobility. For one, you have already done so much with this workout, you might already be exhausted, but that is exactly why we want to add this at the end of the exercise, because we want to keep that mobility active over time. You might want to leave it out, or you might want to do it at the beginning of the workout, but if you already have the mobility to do all those exercises, I would advise you to keep the mobility drills for the end of the workout. And here we're combining internal as well as external rotation in our hips and our knees, and rolling over our ankles. Basically every single joint involved in your lower body ability to move a lot of weight. We're gonna add on a second mobility exercise. Stay on your toes. You're gonna see a lot of calf activation with this one. Some of you might even cramp up, so keep that in mind when you do this exercise, because it has happened to me in a lot of classes and I see it with a lot of people. Stay on your tiptoes, move internally in your hip joint and switch from one side to the other. Preferably touch down to the ground, or work your way to the mobility to be able to touch down to the ground. And with this, my lovely friends, you have earned yourself a nice release on the bar, because we want to decompress our spine and basically decompress all our joints from our toes all the way up to our fingertips. Do that for 2 or 3 or even 4 rounds of 20 to 30 seconds, because you have earned it after this odyssey of a leg workout. And I am proud of you. Consider yourself patted on the back. If you like this video, like the video and subscribe, and I'll see y'all tomorrow, because new videos every single day. Captain Cairo, peace out.